After drop-off, my stepson's teacher asked, "Why is your child absent today?" I was buckling Jake's seatbelt when his teacher, Mrs. Patterson, knocked on my passenger window. My heart did that familiar skip it always does when someone from school wants to talk. 8-year-olds aren't exactly known for their stellar behavior reports. "Morning, Sarah," she called through the glass, her breath forming little clouds in the October air. "Can I chat with you for just a second?" I rolled down the window, already mentally preparing explanations for whatever Jake had done. Probably something involving the class hamster again. "What's up? Is everything okay?" "Oh, everything's fine now that he's here." Mrs. Patterson glanced at Jake, who was digging through his Spider-Man backpack for his homework folder. "I was just wondering why your son was absent yesterday? You didn't send a note, and the office couldn't reach you." The words hit me like ice water. Absent? Jake wasn't absent yesterday. I dropped him off myself at 7:45, same as always. He had that math test, remember? Mrs. Patterson's expression shifted from casual concern to confusion. "That's strange. He's marked absent in our system for the entire day. Mrs. Rodriguez in the office tried calling both your number and..." She paused, lowering her voice. "And Lisa's number when she couldn't reach you." Lisa. My stepson's biological mother, who hadn't shown up for her last 4 scheduled visitation weekends, leaving Jake sitting by the window with his overnight bag packed, asking me every 10 minutes if maybe she was just running late. "There has to be some mistake," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, something cold was settling in my stomach. "Jake, honey, you were at school yesterday, right? You took your math test with Mrs. Patterson?" Jake looked up from his backpack, a smear of strawberry Pop-Tart on his cheek. "Yeah, I got a 97. Mrs. Patterson put the smiley face sticker on it, remember?" He pulled out a crumpled paper with 97% great job, scrawled across the top in red ink. Mrs. Patterson stared at the test paper like it was written in ancient hieroglyphics. I definitely wrote that." I remembered Jake answering the bonus question about fractions. She looked between Jake and me, her professional composure starting to crack. But according to our attendance system, he wasn't here. This doesn't make any sense. The pieces were clicking together in my mind, forming a picture I really didn't want to see. "Mrs. Patterson, is it possible for a child to be enrolled at 2 different schools?" "Well, technically, yes, but it would be..." She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes widening as the same realization hit her. "Oh my god. You don't think..." "Mom, Sarah, can I go play on the swings before the bell rings?" Jake was already unbuckling himself, oblivious to the bomb that had just gone off in the front seat. "Sure, buddy. Stay where we can see you." I watched him bound toward the playground, his dinosaur light-up sneakers flashing with each step. The same sneakers I bought him last month when Lisa was supposed to take him school shopping but never showed. "Sarah," Mrs. Patterson said quietly, "I think you need to talk to Principal Morrison. Today. This situation." She shook her head. "If what I'm thinking is actually happening, this is fraud. Educational fraud." My hands were shaking as I turned off the ignition. 2 years. 2 years of loving this kid, of wiping his tears when his mom didn't show, of helping with homework and packing lunches and being the one who showed up. And now this. "Mrs. Patterson, can you print out Jake's attendance record for this year?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "All of it. Every absence, every tardy, everything." She nodded grimly. "I'll have it ready by lunch. Sarah, you should also know." She glanced around the parking lot, then leaned closer to my window. 3 weeks ago, we received a records request. Someone wanted copies of Jake's transcripts and attendance records sent to Lincoln Elementary across town. Lincoln Elementary. The school in Lisa's district, 15 minutes from her apartment that Jake had never seen the inside of. "Did you send them?" "We had to. It was a legitimate request from a parent. But we assumed it was just for your records, maybe for a tutoring program or..." Mrs. Patterson trailed off. God, we might have helped her do this. The morning bell rang, and Jake came running back, his cheeks flushed from the cold. "The bell. I gotta go or I'll be late for morning announcements." I helped him out of the car, smoothing down his cowlick, the same stubborn piece of hair that stuck up every morning no matter how much I tried to tame it. "Have a good day, sweetheart. I'll see you at pickup, okay?" "Okay, Mom, Sarah." He gave me a quick hug around the waist before running toward the school entrance. "Mom, Sarah." He'd started calling me that 6 months ago, right after Lisa missed his birthday party. The party I'd planned, the cake I baked, the friends I'd invited. She was supposed to bring the special Batman toy he'd been asking for. Instead, I'd driven to 3 different Target stores at 9 p.m. to find it myself. "I'll call you this afternoon," Mrs. Patterson said. "Once I have everything printed." The drive home was a blur. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I had already made a mental list of everyone I needed to call. David, my husband and Jake's father, was on a work trip in Denver until Thursday. Our lawyer, Janet Morrison, who had handled our custody modification attempts before. The school district's main office. But first, I needed proof. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and started documenting everything. Every missed visitation in the past 6 months, September 15th, September 29th, October 6th, October 20th. Every last-minute cancellation text, every promise to make it up to Jake next time. Every weekend he spent asking me if he'd done something wrong to make his mommy not want to see him. Then I pulled up the state education department website. If Lisa had enrolled Jake at Lincoln Elementary while he was still actively attending Roosevelt Elementary, she wouldn't just be collecting duplicate benefits. She'd be committing felony fraud. The penalty for educational benefits fraud in our state, up to 5 years in prison and restitution of all fraudulently obtained funds. My phone buzzed with a text from David. "How did the drop-off go? Jake excited about the field trip tomorrow?" Field trip. Jake had been talking about the zoo trip for weeks. I'd signed the permission slip, packed his lunch, sent in the $15 for admission. Would Lincoln Elementary have a field trip scheduled for the same day? Was Lisa planning to show up there, playing the concerned mother, while Jake was 40 minutes away looking at penguins? I stared at David's text, my thumbs hovering over the keyboard. "How do you tell your husband that his ex-wife might be using their son as a meal ticket? How do you explain that the woman who barely shows up for custody visits cares enough about money to commit fraud, but not enough about Jake to actually be his mother? Instead, I typed, "Call me when you have a few minutes. We need to talk." 3 hours later, I was sitting across from Principal Morrison with a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. Mrs. Patterson had delivered on her promise, Jake's attendance records, enrollment documents, and a timeline that made my stomach churn. According to our system, Principal Morrison said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, Jake has been marked absent for 17 days this school year. But you're telling me he's been here every single day? Every single day. I spread out the photos I'd taken that morning, pictures from my phone showing Jake at school events, classroom parties, even candid shots of him playing at recess. All time-stamped. All on days he was supposedly absent. I have carpool receipts, Mrs. Patterson's communication log, even a video of him in the Halloween parade last week. Principal Morrison's jaw tightened as he flipped through the evidence. "Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest. Has Jake ever mentioned attending another school? Even for a day? Never. He doesn't even know where Lincoln Elementary is." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to my call log. But I found something else. Look at this. I showed him the screen, missed calls from Lisa, all during school hours. September 18th at 10:15 a.m. October 3rd at 1:30 p.m. October 15th at 9:45 a.m. She's been calling me during the exact times Jake would be in class here. I never answered because I thought she was drunk or having some kind of crisis. But now. I swallowed hard. Now I think she was establishing an alibi. If anyone questioned where Jake was, she could say she tried to reach his stepmother but couldn't get through. Mrs. Patterson knocked on the office door, her face grim. "I have the Lincoln Elementary information you requested." She handed Principal Morrison a printed email. I spoke with their attendance clerk. Jake Morrison is enrolled there as of August 15th. He's been marked present for every day he's marked absent here. The room went dead silent except for the tick of the wall clock. August 15th. 2 weeks before school started. Lisa had planned this. There's more, Mrs. Patterson continued. Lincoln Elementary has been receiving his state funding allocation, $47 per day for attendance, plus additional benefits for low-income support since Lisa qualified for reduced lunch programs. Principal Morrison's calculator was already out. 17 days times $47. That's $799 in basic funding alone. Plus the meal allowances, transportation stipends. He looked up at me, his expression somewhere between anger and disbelief. We're looking at over $1,200 in fraudulent claims, and that's just since September. My phone rang, David calling back. I'd been dreading this conversation for 3 hours. I need to take this. I stepped into the hallway, my hands shaking as I answered. "Hey. Sarah, what's wrong?" Your text sounded serious. Where do you even start? David, I need you to sit down. Lisa has been. Jake is enrolled at 2 schools. She's been collecting money for sending him to Lincoln Elementary while I drop him off at Roosevelt every day. Silence. Then, what do you mean, 2 schools? I mean your ex-wife has been committing fraud using your son. She's been getting paid by the state for Jake attending a school he's never set foot in. My voice cracked. David, she doesn't even see him, but she's using him as an ATM. That's. I could hear him breathing heavily through the phone. That's impossible. Why would she do that? Money. David, it's always been about money. I thought about all the times Lisa had called asking for extra child support, claiming Jake needed things I'd already bought him. I think this is bigger than just the school fraud. I think she's been double-dipping on everything. I'm coming home. I'm getting on the next flight. Your conference. Screw the conference. Sarah, if what you're saying is true, we need to document everything. Tonight. This could be our chance to get full custody, to protect Jake from. He paused. God, she's been using our son like a paycheck. Through Principal Morrison's office window, I could see him on the phone with someone, probably the district superintendent. Mrs. Patterson was making copies of everything, building a paper trail that could change Jake's life forever. Or destroy it, if Lisa found out what we knew. When I walked back into Principal Morrison's office, his face had gone completely pale. He was still holding the phone, but whoever he'd been talking to had clearly hung up. Sarah, we have a problem. He gestured for me to sit down. I just spoke with the district's fraud investigation team. This situation is more complicated than we thought. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Lincoln Elementary isn't just receiving Jake's funding. According to their records, Lisa has been actively participating in their system. She's attended parent-teacher conferences, signed field trip permissions, even volunteered for their fall fundraiser. He pulled out a printed email and slid it across his desk. Look at this. The email was from Lincoln Elementary's PTA coordinator, dated 3 days ago. "Thank you so much, Lisa, for organizing the bake sale. Jake must be so proud to have such an involved mom. The chocolate chip cookies you made were a huge hit." I stared at the words until they blurred. She made cookies for a school Jake doesn't even attend? It gets worse. Mrs. Patterson had returned with another stack of papers. I called Lincoln Elementary's main office, pretending to be confirming Jake's pickup arrangements. They have detailed records of Lisa dropping him off every morning at 7:30 a.m. and picking him up at 3:15 p.m. Every single day. That's impossible. My voice came out as a whisper. I drop Jake off here every morning. We leave our house at 7:35, we're here by 7:45. There's no way she could be dropping off anyone at Lincoln at 7:30. Principal Morrison and Mrs. Patterson exchanged glances. Sarah, he said gently, is there any chance Jake has a sibling you don't know about? Maybe Lisa has another child she's using Jake's identity for? The question hit me like a physical blow. In 2 years of custody battles, family court hearings, and endless documentation, the possibility had never occurred to me. I don't know. David never mentioned, but they haven't exactly been communicating lately. I fumbled for my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Janet Morrison, our family lawyer. She answered on the second ring. Sarah? What's wrong? You sound upset. Janet, I need you to run a background check on Lisa Chin. Specifically, I need to know if she's had any other children since Jake. Can you do that today? Of course, but it's urgent. We've discovered she's been committing educational fraud, and now we think she might be using another child with Jake's information. Janet's tone shifted immediately into lawyer mode. Don't say another word over the phone. I'm coming to you. Where are you right now? Roosevelt Elementary, in the principal's office. Stay there. Don't leave, don't call anyone else, and don't let anyone from the school district contact Lisa until I arrive. Sarah, if what you're suggesting is true, this isn't just fraud anymore. This could be identity theft involving a minor. After I hung up, the three of us sat in heavy silence. Outside the window, I could see the second grade recess, kids running around the playground in their winter coats. Jake was probably out there somewhere, laughing with his friends, completely unaware that his entire world might be built on lies. There's something else, Mrs. Patterson said quietly. When I called Lincoln Elementary, I asked them to describe the child Lisa drops off. The secretary said he's small for his age, dark hair, very quiet. Wears a lot of dinosaur shirts. My blood ran cold. Jake was small for his age, had dark hair, loved dinosaur shirts. But so did a lot of 8-year-old boys. But then she said something odd, Mrs. Patterson continued. She mentioned that the boy seems scared of Lisa. That he never talks to her in the drop-off line, never hugs her goodbye. She assumed it was just a shy phase. Principal Morrison was writing everything down, creating an official record. Sarah, I need to ask you something difficult. When Jake comes home from school, does he ever mention things that don't make sense? Activities he supposedly did here that you don't remember? Friends with names you've never heard before? I thought back over the past few weeks, searching for clues I might have missed. Actually, yes. Last Tuesday he mentioned playing with someone named Marcus at recess, but Mrs. Patterson told me there's no Marcus in his class. And he's been talking about a reading program that doesn't sound like anything you do here. Lincoln Elementary has a student named Marcus Chen in their second grade, Mrs. Patterson said grimly. No relation to Jake, just a coincidence. And they run a special reading intervention program on Tuesday afternoons. The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture so disturbing I could barely process it. Lisa wasn't just committing fraud, she was actively participating in an elaborate deception that somehow involved my stepson having detailed knowledge of a school he'd never attended. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Park at 4 p.m. Come alone. L. Lisa. Somehow, she knew we were onto her. I stared at Lisa's text message, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Principal Morrison noticed my expression immediately. What is it? I showed him the screen. She knows. Somehow, Lisa knows we're investigating. Mrs. Patterson leaned over to read the message. How is that possible? We haven't contacted her, and Lincoln Elementary doesn't know we've been asking questions. Principal Morrison's face darkened. Unless someone tipped her off. He reached for his office phone. I need to call district security. If Lisa is monitoring communications somehow, or if someone at Lincoln Elementary warned her. Wait. I held up my hand, thinking frantically. What if this isn't about today? What if she's been planning to contact me anyway? I scrolled back through our text history, mostly unanswered messages about missed visitations. Look at the pattern. She always texts me right before she's about to disappear for weeks. Maybe this is just coincidence. But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. The timing was too perfect. My phone rang again, Janet Morrison. Sarah, I'm 10 minutes out, but I have preliminary information you need to hear immediately. Lisa Chen gave birth to a second child 18 months ago. A boy named Tyler Chen Rodriguez. Father listed as Miguel Rodriguez. The room spun. She has another son? Born March 15, 2022. He'd be 18 months old now, but here's the concerning part. There are no medical records for this child after his birth certificate was filed. No pediatrician visits, no vaccination records, nothing. Mrs. Patterson grabbed my arm. Sarah, what if the child at Lincoln Elementary isn't Jake at all? What if it's this Tyler, and she's been using Jake's identity because he's school-aged? But the secretary said he was 8, that he did schoolwork. I stopped. Oh God. What if she's been coaching a toddler to pretend to be older? Making him sit in classes he can't understand? Principal Morrison was already dialing. I'm calling Child Protective Services. Now. No, wait. I grabbed his hand. If CPS shows up at Lincoln Elementary and Tyler isn't there, or if Lisa gets spooked, she could disappear with both kids. We need more proof first. Janet's voice came through the phone speaker. Sarah's right. We need to coordinate this carefully. Sarah, under no circumstances should you meet with Lisa alone. Whatever she wants to discuss, it's not going to be friendly. I looked at the text again. Riverside Park, 4 p.m. That was exactly when Jake got out of school. She knows I'll be picking up Jake at 3:45. She's counting on me having him with me. Or, Mrs. Patterson said grimly, she's planning to pick him up herself. Sarah, what if this whole thing has been building to Lisa taking Jake and running? The school fraud, the false identity for Tyler, what if it's all been preparation for disappearing permanently? The thought hit me like ice water. Lisa had been establishing Tyler's fake identity as Jake for months, collecting money, building a paper trail. If she took the real Jake and left town, there would be documentation showing Jake was still attending school in our district with his loving mother. I need to get Jake. Now. I was already standing, grabbing my purse. Mrs. Patterson, can you pull him from class early? I don't care what excuse you use. Sarah, wait. Principal Morrison stood too. If you remove Jake from school suddenly, and Lisa is watching somehow, it could trigger whatever she's planning. We need to be strategic about this. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Lisa, bring Jake. He wants to see his baby brother. The words made my stomach drop. She wasn't just planning to take Jake, she was planning to use Tyler as bait, dangling the brother Jake had never known about to lure him in willingly. She has Tyler with her, I whispered. At the park. She's going to tell Jake he has a little brother, and he'll want to meet him. He'll go with her willingly. Mrs. Patterson's face went white. An 18-month-old who's been sitting in second-grade classes for months. Sarah, that child needs medical attention. No toddler should be forced to sit still for 6 hours a day pretending to be in elementary school. Janet's voice crackled through the phone. I'm calling the FBI. This is crossing state lines potentially, involves identity fraud with minors, and child endangerment. Sarah, do not engage with Lisa. I repeat, do not meet with her. But I was already heading for the door. I have to. If I don't show up, she'll know we're onto her, and she'll run. Tyler could die if she takes him on the road. He's probably malnourished, definitely traumatized. I paused at Principal Morrison's door. Call David. Tell him to get here as fast as he can. And if I'm not back by 5 p.m. with Jake, call the police. Outside, the October air felt sharp against my skin. In 2 hours, I would either be holding both Jake and his baby brother safely, or I would lose the child I loved more than my own life to a woman who saw kids as nothing more than dollar signs. I had never been more terrified in my life. I sat in my car in the elementary school parking lot, engine running, watching the clock tick toward 3:45. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I called David back. I'm at the airport, he said immediately. Flight leaves in 40 minutes. Sarah, Janet filled me in on everything. You cannot meet with Lisa alone. David, she has Tyler with her. Your son has a baby brother who's been living God knows how, and Lisa's using him as bait. I watched parents starting to line up for pickup. If I don't show up, she'll panic. She could hurt that baby. Then we call the police right now. With what evidence? That Jake has a half-brother who might be pretending to attend school. We need proof, and the only way to get it is. My phone beeped with another incoming text. This one included a photo that made my blood freeze. It was Jake's Spider-Man backpack, the one he'd carried into school that morning, sitting on a park bench. Empty. I screamed. Sarah? Sarah, what's wrong? She has him. David, she has Jake. She somehow got him out of school. I was already throwing the car into drive, tires squealing as I peeled out of the parking lot. That's impossible. You just talked to the principal. The backpack. She sent me a picture of his backpack at Riverside Park. I was sobbing now, barely able to see through my tears. How long was I in that meeting? An hour? 2 hours? David, what if she had someone else pick him up? What if she forged pickup authorization? I called the school while driving, hands-free, praying Mrs. Patterson would answer. Roosevelt Elementary, this is. It's Sarah. Where is Jake? Is he still in class? A pause that lasted forever. Sarah, Jake was picked up at 1:30 by his mother. She had proper identification and signed the release forms. I thought you knew. The phone slipped from my hands. Lisa had Jake. She'd had him for over 2 hours. When I screeched into Riverside Park, I could see them immediately, Lisa sitting on a bench near the playground, holding a small dark-haired child who looked way too big to be carried like a baby. And next to her, Jake, looking confused but not scared. Yet. I parked and walked over slowly, every instinct screaming at me to run and grab Jake. But Lisa was watching me carefully, and I could see now that the little boy in her arms, Tyler, looked wrong. Too thin, too quiet, eyes that seemed much older than 18 months. Hello, Sarah, Lisa said calmly. Thanks for coming. Jake's been so excited to meet Tyler. Jake looked up at me with bright eyes. Mom, Sarah. Look, this is my little brother. Mom, Lisa says he's been going to school too, just like me. The innocent joy in his voice nearly broke me. Hi, sweetheart. That's really exciting. I kept my voice steady, smiling at him while studying Tyler. The child was definitely older than 18 months, maybe 3 or 4, but small for his age, wearing clothes that were too big and hanging onto Lisa with a grip that looked more desperate than affectionate. We need to talk, Lisa said, shifting Tyler in her arms. He winced, and I caught a glimpse of what looked like a bruise on his wrist. About Jake's future. About what's best for him. Of course. I sat down on the bench across from them, calculating distances. Jake was about 4 feet away. If I lunged, could I grab him before Lisa could react? What did you want to discuss? Lisa's smile was cold. I know what you've been doing, Sarah. The phone calls to schools, the meetings with lawyers. You think I don't pay attention, but I do. My heart hammered. I don't know what you mean. Lincoln Elementary called me this afternoon. Apparently, Roosevelt Elementary has been asking questions about my son's enrollment. She bounced Tyler slightly, and he made a soft whimpering sound. Seems there's been some confusion about Jake's attendance. Jake looked between us, his 8-year-old brain starting to pick up on the tension. Mom, Lisa, why did you pick me up early? Mrs. Patterson said there was a family emergency. Because we're taking a little trip, baby. Lisa's voice was honey-sweet, but her eyes stayed locked on mine. You and Tyler and Mommy are going to go somewhere new. Won't that be fun? What about Mom, Sarah? Jake asked immediately. And Daddy? They'll catch up later, Lisa lied smoothly. But first, we need to go. Right now. She stood up, still holding Tyler, and reached for Jake's hand. That's when I saw it, a duffel bag at her feet, packed and ready. This wasn't a conversation. This was a kidnapping. Jake, come here, I said firmly. Lisa's grip tightened on Tyler, who let out a small cry. I don't think so, Sarah. Jake belongs with his real family. With me and his brother. Jake, I said louder, walk to me right now. But Lisa was already moving, pulling Jake toward the parking lot where a car I didn't recognize was waiting, engine running. Someone else was helping her. I bolted from the bench, but Lisa was already 10 feet ahead of me, dragging Jake toward a silver Honda with tinted windows. Tyler was crying openly now, a heartbreaking sound that cut through the afternoon air. Jake, stop. I screamed. Don't get in that car. Jake planted his feet, confused and starting to get scared. Mom, Lisa, I want to stay with Mom, Sarah. You said we were just visiting. Plans change, baby. Lisa's voice had lost all pretense of sweetness. She was yanking on Jake's arm now, hard enough that he stumbled. We need to go. Now. The Honda's driver door opened, and Miguel Rodriguez stepped out. I recognized him from the custody file photos, Lisa's on and off boyfriend for the past 3 years. The man listed as Tyler's father on the birth certificate. Having trouble? Miguel asked, walking around to help Lisa. He was bigger than I remembered from the pictures, at least 6'2" with a kind of build that suggested he could easily overpower me. Jake won't cooperate, Lisa snapped. Grab him. That's when something inside me snapped. Get away from him. I lunged forward just as Miguel reached for Jake. My shoulder slammed into his chest, sending him stumbling backward. Jake broke free from Lisa's grip and ran to me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Mom, Sarah, I'm scared. What's happening? It's okay, baby. Just stay behind me. I kept myself between Jake and them, my heart pounding so hard I could barely think. Lisa, let's talk about this rationally. Whatever you need, whatever you want, we can work it out. Lisa shifted Tyler to one hip, and I got a better look at him. He wasn't just thin, he was gaunt. His clothes hung on his tiny frame, and there were dark circles under his eyes that no 4-year-old should have. When he turned his head, I saw what looked like finger-shaped bruises on his neck. You want to know what I want? Lisa's voice was rising, drawing attention from other families in the park. I want what's mine. Jake is my son, and I've been supporting him just fine. Supporting him? The words exploded out of me. You haven't seen him in 6 weeks. I'm the one who takes him to doctor appointments, helps with homework, holds him when he cries because his mommy doesn't show up. I've been busy building us a future. Lisa gestured wildly with her free hand. Do you have any idea how much money it takes to raise 2 kids? The state assistance for Jake's education alone brings in almost $1,500 a month when you factor in all the programs. Miguel was circling around us now, trying to get behind me. I turned to keep him in sight, pulling Jake with me. Mom, Sarah, Jake whispered, Tyler looks sick. He was right. Tyler's breathing seemed labored, and his skin had an unhealthy pallor. How long had Lisa been dragging this baby to elementary school, forcing him to sit still for hours pretending to be Jake? Lisa, Tyler needs medical attention, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Look at him. When's the last time he saw a doctor? He's fine, she snapped, but her grip on him loosened slightly. He's just tired from school. It's been a long day. School? I stared at her. You actually made him sit through classes today? A 4-year-old pretending to be 8? He's smart. He can handle it. But Lisa's voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw doubt flicker across her face. Miguel made his move then, lunging for Jake. I shoved my stepson away from me as hard as I could. Run. I screamed. Jake, run to the parking lot and find help. Jake hesitated for a split second, torn between obeying me and not wanting to leave me behind. Then his survival instincts kicked in, and he sprinted toward the street where other parents were starting to notice the commotion. Miguel's hands closed around my wrists instead of Jake's, and Lisa let out a furious shriek. You stupid bitch. Now we have nothing. But as Miguel's grip tightened, I heard the most beautiful sound in the world, sirens in the distance, getting closer. The sirens were getting louder, but Miguel's grip on my wrists was like a vice. Over his shoulder, I could see Jake had made it to the parking lot where a woman with a stroller was already on her phone, probably calling 911. Let her go, Lisa hissed at Miguel. We need to leave. Now. But Miguel wasn't listening. His face was twisted with rage as he shook me. This is your fault. You couldn't just mind your own business. Tyler, I gasped, looking at the little boy still clinging to Lisa. Please, he needs help. Look at him. Lisa glanced down at Tyler, and for a moment, her mask slipped. I saw something that might have been genuine concern flicker across her features. Tyler's head was lolling against her shoulder, his breathing shallow and rapid. He's been complaining about his stomach all week, she muttered, almost to herself. But the school nurse at Lincoln said he was fine. The school nurse? I couldn't hide my disbelief. You mean the nurse who thinks she's treating an 8-year-old? Lisa, she has no idea about his real medical history, his actual age, his developmental needs. 3 police cars rounded the corner into the park, sirens blaring. Miguel's hands loosened on my wrists as his head snapped toward the approaching vehicles. Shit. Lisa, we have to go. Wait. Lisa was staring at Tyler with growing alarm. His lips had a bluish tint that definitely hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. Something's wrong. He's not breathing right. The first police car skidded to a stop near the playground, and I saw Jake pointing in our direction from behind the female officer who'd gotten out of the passenger seat. Relief flooded through me so intensely my knees almost buckled. Ma'am, step away from the child, the officer called out, her hand resting on her weapon. Everyone needs to calm down and keep their hands visible. Miguel released me completely and raised his hands, but Lisa seemed frozen, staring down at Tyler. He's burning up, she whispered. Oh God, he's burning up. I took a step closer, my maternal instincts overriding everything else. Lisa, give him to me. I can help. I don't understand, she said, tears starting to stream down her face. He was fine this morning. He went to school, he ate his lunch. What lunch? I asked gently, moving slowly toward her. What did he eat? The school lunch. The same thing Jake always eats. Her voice was getting smaller. Chicken nuggets and chocolate milk and... Lisa, Tyler is probably lactose intolerant. Most toddlers are. And chicken nuggets for a 4-year-old who should still be eating soft foods. I was close enough now to touch them. His digestive system can't handle elementary school cafeteria food. The second police officer was approaching from behind Miguel, speaking quietly into his radio. I caught fragments, child endangerment. Possible medical emergency. Need paramedics. He throws up after lunch sometimes, Lisa admitted, her voice breaking. But I thought he was just nervous about school. New environment, you know? Tyler let out a weak whimper, and I could see his little chest struggling with each breath. Whatever was wrong with him was getting worse by the minute. Officer, I called out, this child needs immediate medical attention. He's been sick and his breathing is compromised. The female officer spoke into her radio again, then approached us with her hands raised peacefully. I'm Officer Martinez. Ma'am, I need you to hand the child to the paramedics when they arrive, okay? They're 2 minutes out. Lisa looked between me and Officer Martinez, her face crumbling as the reality of what she'd done began to sink in. I never meant for him to get sick. I thought if he could just handle school for a few more months, we'd have enough money saved to get our own place. Somewhere stable for both boys. By committing fraud, Officer Martinez said firmly but not unkindly. Ma'am, I need you to understand that you're under arrest. But right now, our priority is getting Tyler the medical care he needs. The ambulance arrived just as Tyler's eyes rolled back and his tiny body went limp in Lisa's arms. Tyler! Lisa screamed as his little body went slack. Officer Martinez immediately radioed for the paramedics to rush in while I instinctively reached for the unconscious child. Give him to me, I said urgently. I have pediatric CPR training. Lisa didn't hesitate. She thrust Tyler into my arms just as 2 paramedics came running with their equipment. The little boy was so light, so fragile. Up close, I could see the full extent of what months of this charade had done to him. His clothes reeked of vomit, there were pressure sores on his back from sitting in chairs too big for his body, and his diaper rash was so severe it had probably been infected for weeks. 4-year-old male, possible dehydration and respiratory distress, I told the paramedics quickly. He's been forced to attend elementary school for months, eating food inappropriate for his age, no proper medical care. The lead paramedic, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, immediately began checking Tyler's vitals while her partner set up oxygen. What's his real name and birth date? Tyler Chen Rodriguez, born March 15, 2022, I said, the information Janet had given me burned into my memory. Lisa was sobbing now, her hands covering her face. Is he going to be okay? Please tell me he's going to be okay. When did he last have fluids? The paramedic asked. And I need to know everything he's consumed in the past 24 hours. Lisa looked lost, so I spoke up. Based on what she told me, he's been eating elementary school cafeteria food daily. Probably dairy products his system can't handle, processed foods too advanced for a 4-year-old. Severe dehydration, the paramedic confirmed, inserting a tiny 4 into Tyler's arm. His electrolytes are completely out of balance. We need to get him to Children's Hospital immediately. Officer Martinez had Miguel in handcuffs now, reading him his rights. A second officer was approaching Lisa with restraints, but she seemed too devastated to resist. Wait, I said to Officer Martinez. Can Lisa ride with Tyler to the hospital? He's going to be terrified if he wakes up alone, and she's still his mother. Sarah, no, came a voice behind me. I turned to see Jake running toward us, escaping from the officer who'd been keeping him safe by the cars. Mom, Sarah, don't let them take Tyler away from us too. My heart shattered. In his 8-year-old mind, Jake had just discovered he had a baby brother, and now that brother was being taken away in an ambulance. Jake, honey, Tyler is very sick, I said, kneeling down to his level while the paramedics continued working. He needs special doctors to help him feel better. But he's my brother, Jake said, tears streaming down his face. I've never had a brother before. What if he dies? Lisa's sobs intensified at Jake's words. This is all my fault, she choked out. I thought I was being smart, getting money for both of them, but I nearly killed him. The paramedic looked up from Tyler's still form. We're losing him. We need to move now. As they loaded Tyler onto a gurney, his eyes fluttered open for just a moment. He looked around in confusion and fear until his gaze landed on Jake. Then he did something that broke everyone's heart. He reached out his tiny hand toward his big brother. Jakey, he whispered, using what was probably his first word in days. He knows me, Jake breathed in wonder. Mom, Sarah, he knows my name. Officer Martinez made a decision. Lisa can ride with the child, but she'll be in custody at the hospital. Sarah, can you follow with Jake? That little boy is going to need both his brother and his mother if he's going to pull through this. As the ambulance pulled away with sirens wailing, I realized our nightmare was far from over. Even if Tyler survived, the legal ramifications were just beginning. Lisa was facing multiple felony charges, Miguel was probably going away for a long time, and Jake was about to learn that loving someone sometimes means watching them fight for their life because of choices completely beyond your control. But as I buckled Jake into his car seat and followed the ambulance toward Children's Hospital, I made a silent promise. Whatever happened next, these 2 boys would never be used as pawns again. They would be loved, protected, and given the chance to just be brothers. If it wasn't already too late. The drive to Children's Hospital felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. Jake sat quietly in his booster seat, staring out the window, processing everything that had just happened. Every few minutes, he'd ask the same question, is Tyler going to be okay, Mom, Sarah? And every time, I gave him the same answer I wasn't sure I believed. The doctors are going to do everything they can, sweetheart. My phone rang through the car's Bluetooth system, David calling back. Sarah, I just landed. Where are you? Children's Hospital. David, Tyler collapsed. He's in critical condition. I kept my voice steady for Jake's sake, but my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Jesus Christ. What about Jake? Is he hurt? He's with me. He's scared but physically fine. I glanced in the rearview mirror at my stepson's pale face. Lisa and Miguel are both in custody, but she's at the hospital with Tyler right now. I'm getting a rental car. I'll be there in 40 minutes. After I hung up, Jake finally spoke again. Mom, Sarah, why did Mom Lisa make Tyler pretend to be me at that other school? How do you explain financial fraud and child endangerment to an 8-year-old? Sometimes grown-ups make really bad choices when they're worried about money, honey. Your mom thought she was helping, but she made Tyler very sick instead. Is that why he looked so skinny? And why he was so quiet? Yes, baby. Tyler's been very scared and confused for a long time. We pulled into the hospital parking garage, and I could see the ambulance bay in the distance. My phone buzzed with a text from Janet Morrison. CPS is meeting you at the hospital. Don't let Jake talk to anyone official without me present. I'm 15 minutes away. Child Protective Services. Of course they'd be involved now. A 4-year-old had nearly died because of prolonged abuse and neglect, and Jake had been indirectly involved in the fraud scheme. Even though we were the victims here, CPS would have to investigate our home situation too. Inside the hospital, the pediatric emergency department was controlled chaos. I held Jake's hand tightly as we approached the reception desk. We're here about Tyler Chen Rodriguez, I told the clerk. The little boy who just came in by ambulance. Are you family? I'm Jake's stepmother, I said, gesturing to Jake. Tyler's half-brother. The clerk's expression softened when she saw Jake. The social worker asked me to page her when you arrived. Can you have a seat in the family waiting area? We'd barely sat down when a woman in her 50s approached us, carrying a clipboard and wearing the kind of compassionate but professional expression I'd learned to recognize from our previous custody battles. Sarah? I'm Patricia Hernandez from Child Protective Services. I know this is an incredibly difficult situation, but I need to ask Jake a few questions about his home life and what happened today. I'd prefer to wait for our attorney, I said carefully. Of course. But while we're waiting, I want you to know that from everything I've heard so far, you and your husband are not under investigation. You're the ones who uncovered this situation and potentially saved Tyler's life. Before I could respond, a doctor in scrubs approached our group. Are you Tyler's family? Yes, Patricia and I said simultaneously. I'm Dr. Patel. Tyler is stable for now, but his condition is quite serious. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, and what appears to be a chronic intestinal infection. We're running blood work to check for other complications. Jake tugged on my sleeve. Can I see him? Dr. Patel knelt down to Jake's level. Tyler is sleeping right now, and he has a lot of tubes and machines helping him feel better. It might look scary. Are you sure you want to visit? Jake nodded solemnly. He's my brother. I want him to know I'm here. The mother is currently in his room under police supervision, Dr. Patel said to me quietly. I should warn you, she's not handling this well. We followed Dr. Patel down a hallway lined with colorful murals toward the intensive care unit. Through the window of room 314, I could see Lisa hunched in a chair next to Tyler's bed, her hands cuffed to the chair arm, an officer standing quietly in the corner. Tyler looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, surrounded by monitors and 4 lines. Jake pressed his face against the window. He looks like a baby. He basically is a baby, I said softly. He's only 4 years old, Jake. He should be playing with toys and watching cartoons, not sitting in a second-grade classroom. Is that why he was so quiet at the park? Because he was scared? Probably. Tyler's been living in a very confusing, frightening world for months. Dr. Patel returned with an update that made my stomach drop. The blood work shows signs of chronic stress and possible developmental delays. This child has been in survival mode for so long that his growth has been stunted. We're looking at months of recovery, and that's if there's no permanent damage. Patricia Hernandez was taking notes. Doctor, in your professional opinion, how long has this child been suffering from neglect? Based on his physical condition and the severity of his symptoms? I'd estimate at least 6 months of inadequate care, possibly longer. 6 months. Lisa had been torturing Tyler for half of his short life, all for approximately $1,200 a month in fraudulent benefits. Jake was still staring through the window when Tyler's eyes opened. Even from the hallway, I could see the little boy's head turned toward the door, searching. When he spotted Jake through the glass, Tyler tried to sit up, pulling against his 4 lines. He wants to see me, Jake whispered. Mom, Sarah, he really wants to see me. And despite everything, the fraud, the arrests, the medical crisis, I felt something like hope blooming in my chest. Tyler had been through hell, but he knew his big brother. He wanted his family. Maybe, just maybe, we could still save them both. Dr. Patel was explaining Tyler's treatment plan when Janet Morrison arrived, slightly out of breath and carrying a thick manila folder. She took one look at the CPS worker, the police officer, and Jake pressed against Tyler's window, and her expression shifted into full protective mode. Nobody talks to my client or his son without me present, she announced firmly. Sarah, Jake, come here please. But Jake wasn't moving. Through the glass, Tyler had managed to pull himself up despite the 4 lines, his tiny hand pressed against the window matching Jake's on the other side. Jakey, Tyler whispered, his voice barely audible through the glass. Scared. Jake turned to me with tears streaming down his face. Mom, Sarah, can I please go in? He needs me. Patricia Hernandez consulted her clipboard. Actually, that might be beneficial for Tyler's recovery. Dr. Patel, would supervised sibling contact be medically advisable? In Tyler's current state, familiar faces could help reduce his stress levels, Dr. Patel agreed. But only for short periods, and only immediate family. Lisa looked up when we entered the room, her face swollen from crying. The officer in the corner straightened but didn't interfere as Jake approached Tyler's bed. Hi, Tyler, Jake said softly, his 8-year-old voice gentle in a way that broke my heart. I'm Jake. I'm your big brother. Tyler's eyes locked onto Jake's face with an intensity that was almost desperate. Jakey, he repeated, then looked around the room in confusion. Home? You're in the hospital, buddy, Jake explained patiently. The doctors are making you feel better. But I'm here now, okay? I'm going to stay. Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. He's been asking for you. 4 weeks. I told him his big brother lived far away, but he kept asking when Jakey was coming home. Janet stepped closer to Lisa's chair. Mrs. Chen, I need you to understand that anything you say right now can and will be used against you in court. You have the right to remain silent. I don't care about court, Lisa sobbed. Look at him. Look what I did to my baby. Tyler reached out toward Jake with trembling fingers. Hug? Jake looked at me questioningly, and I nodded. He carefully climbed onto the side of Tyler's bed, avoiding the medical equipment, and wrapped his arms around his little brother. Tyler melted into the embrace with a sigh that sounded like pure relief. I've been looking for you everywhere, Jake whispered into Tyler's hair. I didn't even know you existed, but I always wanted a brother. Patricia Hernandez was writing rapidly in her notebook. Mrs. Chen, I need to ask you directly, has Tyler been attending Lincoln Elementary every day for the past 4 months? Lisa nodded miserably. Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 3:15. He'd sit in the back of Jake's supposed classroom, and I told the teacher he was shy and had developmental delays that made him seem younger. A 4-year-old sitting through 6 hours of second-grade curriculum daily? Dr. Patel's voice was sharp with professional outrage. No wonder his stress levels are through the roof. His cortisol must have been chronically elevated for months. The teacher never questioned it? Janet asked. I told them he was on the autism spectrum and that educational immersion was part of his therapy, Lisa admitted. I researched it online. I made it sound legitimate. Tyler had fallen asleep in Jake's arms, his breathing finally steady and peaceful. Jake looked up at me with an expression far too mature for his age. Mom, Sarah, Tyler's going to live with us now, right? When he gets better? I glanced at Patricia Hernandez, who was already shaking her head slightly. The reality hit me like a freight train. Even though we'd saved Tyler, even though Jake was his brother, we had no legal standing. Tyler would go into foster care while Lisa faced charges, and there was no guarantee we'd ever see him again. Unless we fought for him too. The peaceful moment shattered when Tyler suddenly jerked awake, his small body going rigid against Jake's chest. His eyes were wide with terror, darting around the hospital room like he was searching for an escape route. No school, he whimpered, trying to push Jake away. No more school, please. Jake held on gently. It's okay, Tyler. There's no school today. You're safe. But Tyler was inconsolable now, his breathing becoming rapid and shallow again. Teacher mad. Tyler, sit still. Tyler, be Jake. No crying. Dr. Patel immediately moved to check Tyler's vitals while I felt my heart breaking into pieces. This baby had been trained to suppress his natural 4-year-old behavior for hours at a time, day after day. How did you explain his bathroom needs? Dr. Patel asked Lisa sharply. 4-year-olds need frequent breaks, assistance. Pull-ups, Lisa whispered, not meeting anyone's eyes. I told the school he had bladder issues and to just ignore accidents. The officer in the corner shifted uncomfortably. Even he looked disturbed by the implications. Tyler was crying now, real tears, and repeating the same phrase over and over. Tyler, be good, Jake. Tyler, be good, Jake. Jake looked at me desperately. Mom, Sarah, I don't understand. Why does he keep saying he has to be me? Patricia Hernandez stepped forward. Jake, can you tell Tyler that he doesn't have to pretend anymore? That he can just be Tyler? Tyler, Jake said softly, stroking his brother's hair. You don't have to be Jake. I'm Jake. You're Tyler. You can just be Tyler now. Tyler's crying intensified. No Tyler at school. Only Jake at school. Tyler, bad boy. The full horror of what Lisa had done was becoming clear. She hadn't just committed fraud, she'd systematically erased this child's identity, convinced him that being himself was wrong, that his only value lay in successfully impersonating his older brother. Mrs. Chen, Janet said, her lawyer voice cutting through the emotional chaos, I need you to tell us exactly how you prepared Tyler for these school days. What did you tell him? How did you train him? Lisa's answer came out in broken fragments between sobs. Practice. Every night. Sit still for 2 hours. No talking unless teacher asks. Raise hand for bathroom but don't go too much. Eat the lunch even if sick. Tell everyone your name is Jake Morrison Chin. Jesus Christ, the officer muttered. And if he broke character? Patricia pressed. Lisa's silence was answer enough. Tyler had worn himself out crying and was drifting back to sleep, but his little hands were clenched into fists even in unconsciousness. Dr. Patel was reviewing his chart with increasing concern. I'm seeing indicators of chronic trauma response, he said quietly. This child is going to need extensive psychological intervention. The identity confusion alone could take years to resolve. My phone buzzed with a text from David, parking garage level 3. How bad is it? Before I could respond, Patricia's phone rang. She stepped into the hallway to take the call, and I could hear fragments through the open door. Emergency placement. Siblings separated. No immediate relatives qualified. When she returned, her expression was grim. I just spoke with my supervisor. Given the circumstances, Tyler will need to be placed in specialized foster care, a family trained to deal with trauma and identity issues. The waiting list is 6 weeks minimum. 6 weeks? Jake's voice cracked. But I just found him. There might be another option, Janet said slowly, and I could practically see the wheels turning in her legal mind. Sarah, how quickly could you and David become licensed emergency foster parents? What do you mean? Emergency placement with relatives or stepfamily members. If you could get certified for emergency foster care within 72 hours, Tyler could potentially stay with you during his recovery period. Patricia was already shaking her head. The paperwork alone takes weeks, not to mention background checks, home inspection, interviews. Unless there are extraordinary circumstances threatening the child's immediate welfare, Janet interrupted. Which there clearly are. Tyler's psychological state is so fragile that separation from his brother right now could cause additional trauma. Tyler stirred in Jake's arms and mumbled something that made everyone freeze. Daddy Miguel hit when Tyler not good Jake. The officer immediately stepped forward. Did he just say someone hit him? Lisa's face went white. Miguel was just, he was trying to help with discipline when Tyler couldn't sit still during practice sessions. Physical abuse, Dr. Patel said grimly, making another note in Tyler's chart. I'll need to do a full examination for signs of systematic abuse. As if the situation couldn't get worse, Tyler's monitor suddenly started beeping frantically. His small body was seizing, and Jake was crying out in terror as medical staff rushed into the room. In the chaos that followed, Tyler being stabilized, Jake being pulled away from the bed, Lisa screaming that she was sorry, I made a decision that would change all our lives. Patricia, I said over the medical alarms, start the emergency foster care paperwork. Whatever it takes, however fast you can make it happen. These boys are not getting separated again. The seizure lasted 43 seconds that felt like 43 years. When Tyler's tiny body finally stopped convulsing and his monitors returned to normal beeping, Dr. Patel's face was grave. The seizure was likely triggered by severe electrolyte imbalance, he explained quietly. His sodium levels are dangerously low from chronic dehydration. We're looking at potential brain swelling. Jake was pressed against my side, shaking. Is Tyler going to die, Mom Sarah? No, sweetheart, I said with more confidence than I felt. The doctors are taking excellent care of him. But Dr. Patel pulled me aside while the nurses adjusted Tyler's 4 medications. Sarah, I need you to understand how serious this is. Tyler's body has been in starvation mode for months. His organs are struggling to function normally. The next 72 hours are critical. Patricia Hernandez was already on her phone with someone from the emergency placement division. I caught fragments of her conversation, sibling bonding already established. Medical necessity for familiar caregivers. Expedited home study possible. David burst through the hospital room door just as the nurses finished settling Tyler back into his bed. His hair was disheveled from the flight, his tie loosened, and when he saw Jake clinging to my side while staring at his unconscious half-brother, something shifted in his expression. "Dear God," he whispered. "He's just a baby." Lisa looked up from her chair, meeting David's eyes for the first time in over a year. "David, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I could handle both boys. I thought if I could just get enough money together." "By torturing your son?" David's voice was deadly quiet. "By making my son an accessory to fraud? I never meant for Jake to know. The schools weren't supposed to communicate." "But they did communicate," Janet interjected, "because you got sloppy. You've been collecting approximately $1,800 per month in fraudulent benefits for Tyler's fake enrollment, plus food assistance, plus medical coverage he wasn't actually receiving." Patricia hung up her phone and turned to us. "I have good news and bad news. The good news is that we can fast-track emergency foster placement if you can complete a home study by Thursday morning. The bad news is that Lisa's parental rights hearing has been moved up to Friday afternoon." "What does that mean?" David asked. "It means the judge will decide whether to terminate her rights entirely or allow supervised visitation pending criminal trial. If her rights are terminated, Tyler becomes available for adoption immediately." I felt David's hand find mine. We'd talked about having children together someday, but never imagined it would happen like this, with a traumatized 4-year-old who'd been systematically abused by his own mother. "What would we need to do?" David asked quietly. "Complete background checks by tomorrow evening, home safety inspection Wednesday afternoon, and a psychological evaluation Thursday morning," Patricia listed. "Then you'd need to officially petition for emergency custody of Tyler and permanent custody modification for Jake." Tyler's eyes fluttered open again, and this time he seemed more alert. His gaze found Jake immediately, then slowly moved to David. "Daddy Jake," he asked in his tiny voice. David's eyes filled with tears. "Yeah, buddy. I'm Jake's daddy. That makes me your..." He paused, looking at me. "Family," I finished softly. "We're all family." But even as I said it, my phone was buzzing with an unknown number. I stepped into the hallway to answer, hoping it wasn't more reporters. News of the arrest was already spreading on social media. "Sarah Morrison?" The voice was unfamiliar, professional. "Yes? This is Detective Maria Santos with the Financial Crimes Unit. We need to schedule an interview regarding the Chen educational fraud case. We've discovered this isn't an isolated incident. Lisa Chen has been running similar schemes in 3 other states over the past 2 years." My blood ran cold. "Other states?" "Texas, Arizona, and Nevada. Different children, different identities, but the same pattern. Mrs. Morrison, your stepson may not be Lisa Chen's only victim. We think Tyler has been used in multiple fraud schemes since birth." The detective's words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the hospital corridor wall for support, watching through Tyler's window as Jake gently held his little brother's hand. "Other children?" I managed to whisper into the phone. "At least 3 that we've identified so far. Lisa Chen has been moving between states, enrolling different children under false identities, collecting benefits, then disappearing when the schemes got too complex." Detective Santos paused. "Mrs. Morrison, we need to know, has Tyler ever mentioned other names he's been told to use? Other brothers or sisters?" My mind reeled. "He's 4 years old and barely speaks. He's been trained to suppress his own identity for months. We're going to need extensive interviews with both boys. Jake might have overheard phone conversations or seen documents that could help us track down the other victims." I thought about Jake's innocent excitement at meeting Tyler, his joy at finally having a brother. How do you tell a child that his little brother has been trafficked through a multi-state fraud ring? "Detective, Tyler just had a seizure. He's fighting for his life right now." "I understand, but Mrs. Morrison, time is critical. We have reason to believe Lisa Chen has a partner network that's still operating. There could be other children in immediate danger." Through the window, I watched Tyler whisper something to Jake that made my stepson's face light up with a smile, the first genuine happiness I'd seen from either boy all day. "Give me 48 hours, I said firmly. "Tyler needs to be medically stable before you traumatize him further with interrogations." After I hung up, I found David in deep conversation with Patricia Hernandez outside Tyler's room. Their expressions were grim. "What now?" I asked, dreading the answer. Patricia consulted her notes. "Miguel Rodriguez has been talking to investigators. According to him, Lisa has been planning to take both boys out of state permanently. He claims she'd already established new identities for them in Colorado." "New identities?" "Social security cards, birth certificates, even school enrollment documents for fake names. Miguel says Lisa told him this was their last job before disappearing completely." David's face was pale. "She was going to kidnap Jake. Today wasn't just about collecting Tyler, she was planning to take both boys and vanish." I thought about the packed bag Lisa had brought to the park, the running car, Miguel's obvious preparation for a quick getaway. If I hadn't questioned Mrs. Patterson about Jake's attendance, if we hadn't uncovered the fraud scheme when we did. "There's something else," Patricia continued reluctantly. "The Colorado documents show Lisa claimed both boys have special needs that qualify for additional federal assistance. She was planning to collect approximately $4,000 monthly using their fake identities." Jake appeared in the doorway, his face streaked with tears. "Tyler keeps asking for his teddy bear. He says he can't sleep without Mr. Patches, but Mom Lisa says she doesn't know where it is." Lisa's voice drifted from inside the room. "I sold it. Last month when rent was due. I sold most of his toys." The casual cruelty of it, selling a traumatized toddler's comfort object for cash, made my vision blur with rage. "Jake, honey," I said carefully, "would you like to go to the gift shop and pick out a new stuffed animal for Tyler?" As David took Jake's hand to lead him down the corridor, Patricia's phone rang again. She listened for a moment, then hung up with a deeply troubled expression. "The FBI is taking over the case." This fraud network spans 7 states now, and they estimate over 24 children have been victimized. She looked at me gravely. Sarah, they want to use Tyler as a witness. If he can identify other adults or locations from his memories, it could save a lot of kids. But Tyler was 4 years old, had been systematically abused, and didn't even know his own real name half the time. The idea of federal agents interrogating him made me sick. Over my dead body, I said. 6 months later, I stood in family court Judge Rebecca Martinez's chambers, holding Tyler's hand while Jake fidgeted nervously in the chair beside us. Tyler was finally healthy, his weight back to normal, his speech developing rapidly, and most importantly, he could sleep through the night without screaming for Mr. Patches 2.0, the elephant Jake had picked out for him that first terrible day. Mrs. Morrison, Judge Martinez said, reviewing the thick file before her, in my 23 years on the bench, I've never seen a case quite like this one. David squeezed my shoulder as the judge continued. Tyler Chen Rodriguez has been through unimaginable trauma, but the psychological evaluations show remarkable progress in the 6 months he's been in your emergency care. Tyler pressed closer to my side. At 4.5 now, he still struggled with crowds and loud voices, but he'd stopped flinching when adults spoke to him. More importantly, he'd started laughing, real belly laughs when Jake tickled him or when their bedtime stories got silly. Jake, the judge addressed my stepson directly. Dr. Williams says you've been an exceptional big brother. How do you feel about Tyler staying with your family permanently? Jake straightened up, serious as only an 8-year-old taking responsibility can be. Your Honor, Tyler belongs with us. He knows all my dinosaur names now, and he helps me feed our goldfish Mr. Bubbles every morning. Plus, he needs someone to protect him. Judge Martinez smiled, the first genuine warmth I'd seen from her during these proceedings. And Tyler, can you tell me how you feel about living with Sarah, David, and Jake? Tyler looked up at me with those dark eyes that had been so hollow 6 months ago, now bright with mischief. Mom Sarah makes good pancakes. And Daddy David reads funny voices. And Jake teaches me big boy things. Mom Sarah. Daddy David. The names had emerged naturally as Tyler healed, and hearing them never failed to make my chest tight with overwhelming love. The court has reviewed all evidence from the federal investigation, Judge Martinez continued, her tone becoming formal again. Lisa Chan has pleaded guilty to 17 counts of fraud across 7 states. She'll serve 4 to 6 years in federal prison, followed by supervised probation. Her parental rights to Tyler have been permanently terminated. I felt David's hand tighten on my shoulder. We'd known this was coming, but hearing it officially still felt surreal. Miguel Rodriguez received 3 years for child endangerment and conspiracy to commit fraud. The FBI's Operation False Identity has recovered 28 children from similar schemes and arrested 12 adults in the trafficking network. Tyler tugged on my sleeve. Mom Sarah, does this mean the bad people can't make me be fake Jake anymore? Never again, sweetheart, I whispered, kissing the top of his head. You get to be Tyler forever. Judge Martinez set down the paperwork and leaned forward. Sarah and David Morrison, you provided exemplary care during this emergency placement period. Your home study reports are flawless, your psychological evaluations show genuine commitment to both children's welfare, and frankly, watching Tyler transform from a traumatized shell into a thriving child speaks volumes about your family. She picked up her gavel. Therefore, this court grants your petition for permanent adoption of Tyler Chen Rodriguez, who shall henceforth be known as Tyler Morrison. Additionally, this court awards you full custody of Jake Morrison with supervised visitation rights terminated for his biological mother. The gavel came down with a decisive bang, and suddenly both boys were in my arms, Jake whooping with joy while Tyler clung to me like he'd never let go. We're really brothers forever now, Jake announced to anyone who would listen. And Mom Sarah is really our mom, and Daddy David is really our daddy, and nobody can ever take us away again. As we walked out of the courthouse, Tyler's small hand secure in mine, I thought about Mrs. Patterson's innocent question 6 months ago, why was your child absent yesterday? It had led us to the truth that saved not just Tyler, but dozens of other children. And now, finally, I could answer that question with complete honesty. Both my children were exactly where they belonged, safe, loved, and home.